The turning point. The Galactic Alliance had always viewed humans as an amusing curiosity. In the grand cosmic theater, where ancient civilizations measured their histories in millennia, humanity was barely a footnote, a species that had stumbled onto the interstellar stage less than 3 centuries ago with their quaint fusion drives and primitive shield technology. The Alliance Council chambers on Nexus Prime reflected this sentiment perfectly. Towering crystalline spires house representatives from over 200 species, all arranged in concentric rings based on their technological sophistication and territorial influence. Humanity's representative, Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, sat in the outermost ring, practically in the shadows. The human petition for expanded colonization rights in the Cygnus sector is denied, announced High Counselor Vexlar, his 6 compound eyes not even bothering to look in Mitchell's direction. The Draxi Elder's voice echoed through the chamber with finality. Their technological capacity remains insufficient to properly develop and defend new systems. Mitchell's knuckles whitened as she gripped the armrests of her seat. This was the 3rd petition denied in as many solar cycles. The growing population pressures on Earth's colonies demanded expansion, but the Alliance continued to treat humanity like children asking for permission to cross the street. With all due respect, High Counselor, Mitchell said, rising to her feet, humanity has met every development benchmark established by the Alliance Charter. Our terraforming techniques are among the most efficient in the... Your ships still use fusion drives, Ambassador, interrupted Kital, the Silurian delegate. Soft laughter rippled through the chamber. The last species to use such primitive propulsion technology was the Chitheri, and they went extinct 10,000 years ago. Perhaps when you've mastered basic graviton manipulation, we can revisit this conversation. More laughter, louder this time. Mitchell forced a diplomatic smile and sat down, the humiliation burning in her chest. The Council moved on to other matters, humanity's concerns already forgotten. What the Alliance didn't know, what Mitchell herself wasn't fully aware of, was that humanity was about to change the galactic equation forever. Deep within the asteroid belt of the Sol system, hidden inside the hollowed-out core of Ceres, Dr. Eliza Chen stared at the containment field with tired, bloodshot eyes. For 15 years, she had led Project Prometheus, working in near-total secrecy on what the United Earth government considered humanity's most important scientific endeavor. "Run the simulation again," she ordered, her voice hoarse from too much coffee and too little sleep. Her team, 20 of the brightest minds humanity had to offer, exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Vikram Patel, her second-in-command, cleared his throat. "Eliza, we've run it 17 times. The containment field is stable. It works." 17 isn't enough, Chen replied without looking away from the holographic display. "If we're off by even a picometer in the field strength, the entire Sol system becomes a memory. Again." Patel sighed but nodded to the technicians. The Antimatter containment simulation began its 18th run. For centuries, humanity had known that antimatter was the ultimate energy source, a single gram containing more energy than a nuclear bomb. The problem had always been containment. Antimatter annihilated upon contact with normal matter, releasing catastrophic energy. Every spacefaring species had attempted to solve the antimatter containment problem. All had abandoned it as too dangerous, too unpredictable. All except humans. The simulation completed. Green lights across the board. 18 perfect runs, Patel said quietly. The mathematical models are sound. The graviton-enhanced magnetic containment field can hold up to 50 grams of antimatter indefinitely. "We've done it, Eliza." Dr. Chen finally looked away from the display, allowing herself a small smile. "Not quite yet. Theoretical models are one thing. Now we build it." 6 months later, Admiral James Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the UES Dauntless, watching as shipyard workers swarmed around the massive frame taking shape in the vacuum of space. Unlike the utilitarian designs of standard human vessels, this ship was sleek, predatory, with sweeping lines that seemed to defy conventional engineering. How much longer? He asked the holographic image of Dr. Chen that floated beside him. 3 months until the antimatter reactor is fully integrated and tested, she replied. The propulsion systems and weapons platforms can be installed concurrently. 6 months total until she's ready for her shakedown cruise. Reynolds nodded, his weathered face betraying no emotion. At 62, he had spent 4 decades in the United Earth Navy, rising through the ranks despite the patronizing attitudes of the Alliance species. He had fought in border skirmishes against pirates and rogue states, always hampered by inferior technology and restrictive Alliance treaties. She's beautiful, he admitted. Does she have a name yet? Officially, she's XVS-01, Chen replied. Experimental Vessel Series 1. But the project team has been calling her Prometheus. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. The titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Appropriate. I thought so, Chen said with a rare smile. Although in this case, we're not stealing fire, we're creating it ourselves. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. Reynolds' aide, Lieutenant Park, rushed onto the observation deck, his face pale. Admiral, we're receiving an emergency transmission from New Terra. They're under attack. New Terra was humanity's youngest colony, a verdant garden world just entering its terraforming final phase. Population, 83,000. Primary exports, rare earth minerals, and agricultural products. Defenses, minimal, as permitted by Alliance regulations for nascent colonies. The attack came without warning. A fleet of sleek, obsidian ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately opened fire on the orbital facilities. The colony's 3 defensive frigates were destroyed in the opening salvo. Ground-based defenses followed minutes later. From orbit, the attackers deployed landing craft. Armored soldiers with 4 arms and chitinous exoskeletons poured into the colony's capital city. Resistance was fierce but hopeless. By the time the distress call reached Earth, half the colony had fallen. The Alliance response was predictable. The Vostar Empire operates outside Alliance jurisdiction, High Counselor Vexlar explained to a furious Ambassador Mitchell. While we regret this unfortunate incident, we cannot intervene in what is essentially a territorial dispute. Territorial dispute. Mitchell's voice shook with rage. They're slaughtering civilians, children. Had your species possessed adequate defensive technology, perhaps this tragedy could have been averted. K'Tal observed with typical Silurian detachment. The Council has warned humanity repeatedly about the dangers of expanding without proper protection. Mitchell stormed out of the Council chambers, making an immediate subspace call to Earth. The United Earth government's response was unanimous. New Terra would not be abandoned. For the first time in its history, humanity would act without Alliance approval. And they would do so with a weapon the galaxy had never seen. We're accelerating the timetable, Admiral Reynolds announced to the Prometheus construction team. I need this ship operational in 30 days. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. That's impossible. The antimatter reactor hasn't been properly. New Terra is burning, Doctor. Reynolds cut her off. Every day we wait, more colonists die. The Vostard don't take prisoners. 30 days. Chen looked around at her team, saw the determination in their eyes, and nodded. We'll make it work. For the next month, the shipyard operated at full capacity, 24 hours a day. Safety protocols were abbreviated, not eliminated. Tests were conducted in parallel rather than sequence. The antimatter containment field was brought online while hull sections were still being attached. Weapon systems were calibrated while life support was still being installed. 30 days later, the Prometheus floated free of its construction cradle. Its hull was a deep, unreflective black that seemed to drink in the light of the distant sun. At 600 meters long, it was larger than any previous human warship, but still modest by Alliance standards. Its lines were smooth, elegant, with none of the bulky protrusions that characterized traditional human engineering. Its heart was something else entirely. The antimatter reactor, containing just 10 grams of the most destructive substance in the universe, produced more energy than 1,000 fusion reactors. That energy fed into systems unlike anything humanity had fielded before. Graviton thrusters capable of near-instantaneous acceleration, shields that could repel energy weapons through dimensional phasing, and a main cannon that focused antimatter particles in a coherent beam. The crew, 200 of Earth's finest, boarded with solemn purpose. They knew they were making history. They also knew they might not return. Admiral Reynolds took the captain's chair on the bridge, Dr. Chen at his side as special scientific advisor. The ship's AI, Diana, reported all systems operational. "Set course for New Terra," Reynolds ordered. "Maximum speed." The Prometheus's engines flared to life, and the ship accelerated at a rate that would have crushed its occupants without the inertial dampening provided by its graviton field. Within moments, it had passed Jupiter's orbit. An hour later, it reached the heliopause, the boundary of the solar system. "Faster than light drive engaging," announced the navigation officer. The stars streaked and then vanished as the Prometheus entered the dimension known as hyperspace. The journey to New Terra, a trip that would have taken a conventional human ship 2 weeks, would be completed in just under 7 hours. In the captain's ready room, Reynolds and Chen reviewed the tactical situation. The Vostar fleet had grown to 12 warships, each larger and more heavily armed than the Prometheus. The colony's capital still held out, protected by a hastily erected shield generator, but food and ammunition were running low. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," Chen observed quietly. Reynolds nodded. "By conventional standards, yes. But convention went out the window when you created that reactor. The question is, will it work as advertised?" Chen met his gaze. "It will. But there's something you should know. The antimatter beam weapon. We've never tested it at full power. The simulations suggest it could cut through a capital ship's shields and hull in a single shot. But we won't know until we try." Reynolds finished for her. "Welcome to the frontier of human innovation, Doctor. Sometimes you have to take the leap before you know where you'll land." The ship's AI interrupted their conversation. "Approaching New Terra system. Hyperspace exit in 5 minutes." Reynolds straightened his uniform and headed for the door. "Let's go make history, or end up as a cautionary tale," Chen murmured, following him to the bridge. The Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Terra system, immediately activating its sensor suite. The situation had deteriorated further. Only a small pocket of resistance remained in the colony capital. The Vostar fleet orbited the planet in a standard patrol formation, clearly not expecting any opposition. "They haven't detected us yet," reported the tactical officer. "Our hull material is absorbing their sensor suites." Reynolds nodded grimly. "Bring us in quietly. Charge all weapons systems, but hold fire until my command." The Prometheus slipped closer, its advanced stealth materials rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. At 5,000 kilometers, point-blank range by space combat standards, Reynolds gave the order. "Target the nearest Vostar vessel. Fire antimatter beam." The prow of the Prometheus split open like a blooming flower, revealing the focusing array of its main weapon. For a brief moment, energy gathered, coalescing into a pinpoint of impossibly bright light. Then the universe changed forever. The Risi-Keoning. The beam lanced out, a perfect line of blue-white radiance that connected the Prometheus to the Vostar warship in an instant. There was no explosion, no dramatic fireball, just a perfect cylindrical hole, 2 meters in diameter, that appeared simultaneously through the enemy vessel's shields, hull, and out the other side. Secondary systems, suddenly exposed to vacuum, detonated in rapid succession. Within seconds, the massive warship, a dreadnought over a kilometer long, split into 2 neatly severed halves. On the Prometheus's bridge, stunned silence reigned. The tactical officer was the first to recover. "Target destroyed, sir. 1 shot. Their shields didn't even register the hit." Reynolds allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before the reality of their situation reasserted itself. They know we're here now. Evasive maneuvers. Target the next ship. The remaining Vostar vessels reacted with predictable fury, energy weapons, and missile salvos converging on the human ship's position. But the Prometheus was already elsewhere, its graviton engines enabling it to change direction with an agility that defied conventional physics. The antimatter beam fired again and again. Each time, a Vostar ship died, cleanly bisected by energy that their shields couldn't comprehend, let alone repel. 4 down, reported the tactical officer, his voice steadier now. The others are beginning to break formation. Reynolds leaned forward. Open a communication channel. All frequencies. The communication officer complied, and Reynolds spoke with quiet authority. This is Admiral James Reynolds of the United Earth Navy vessel Prometheus. You have attacked a human colony without provocation, murdered civilians, and violated our sovereignty. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came in the form of concentrated fire from the remaining 8 Vostar ships. Their energy weapons splashed harmlessly against the Prometheus's phase shields, the exotic matter/energy conversion dissipating the attacks into harmless radiation. So be it, Reynolds said. Target their command vessel. This time, the antimatter beam struck the largest ship in the enemy fleet, presumably carrying the Vostar commander. Unlike the previous shots, this beam didn't cease after contact. It continued, sweeping along the length of the massive warship like a cutting torch through butter. The ship didn't merely split. It unraveled, molecules separating from molecules as the antimatter beam catalyzed a chain reaction of annihilation. The remaining Vostar ships broke formation, attempting to flee. The Prometheus hunted them methodically, its superior speed allowing it to intercept each one before they could reach the system's hyperspace jump point. Within 20 minutes, the entire Vostar fleet had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. Scan for survivors, Reynolds ordered, his face grim. This wasn't a moment for celebration. This was justice, cold and necessary, but not something to revel in. None detected, sir, came the reply. Shall we contact the colony? Reynolds nodded. Patch me through to their command center. The main view screen flickered, then resolved into the dust-streaked face of a woman in a tattered colonial administrator's uniform. Behind her, the command center was in shambles, makeshift medical stations tending to the wounded, civilians huddled in corners. This is Administrator Reyes of New Terra, she said, exhaustion evident in every word. Who am I speaking with? Admiral Reynolds, United Earth Navy. The Vostar fleet has been neutralized. You're safe now. Disbelief washed over Reyes's face, followed by tentative hope. All of them. How is that possible? Our scans showed 12 warships. We'd brought something new to the fight, Reynolds replied simply. Relief ships are en route from Earth. They'll arrive within 2 weeks. Can you hold out until then? Tears welled in Reyes's eyes. Yes, we can hold. Thank you, Admiral. The transmission ended, and Reynolds turned to Dr. Chen. Get me a full diagnostic on the antimatter systems. I want to know exactly how they performed, and what we need to adjust. Chen nodded, her scientific detachment returning now that the immediate crisis had passed. The reactor's operating at 97% efficiency, better than our projections. The beam weapon consumed more antimatter than anticipated, but nothing critical. Good, Reynolds said, rising from his command chair. Because our next stop is Nexus Prime. Chen's eyes widened. The Alliance capital. Admiral, that could be interpreted as an act of war. Not war, Reynolds corrected. Diplomacy, but the kind backed by the ability to enforce our terms. He addressed the navigation officer. Set course for Nexus Prime, maximum speed. Contact Earth. I want Ambassador Mitchell to meet us there. News of the battle at New Terra spread through the galaxy with impossible speed. Initial reports were dismissed as human exaggeration. Then sensor logs from automated Alliance beacons confirmed the impossible. A single human vessel had destroyed 12 Vostar warships in under 30 minutes. The Alliance Council convened an emergency session. The Vostar, normally content to raid isolated colonies beyond Alliance space, had sent a diplomatic delegation demanding protection from human aggression. The irony was lost on no one. When the Prometheus arrived at Nexus Prime, it caused a system-wide panic. Defense platforms activated automatically. Alliance warships moved to intercept, then held position at a respectful distance when their sensors registered the energy signature of the human vessel's reactor. Ambassador Mitchell arrived via diplomatic shuttle, transferring to the Prometheus before proceeding to the Alliance Council chambers. For the first time in human history, their representative would not sit in the outer ring. The council chamber fell silent as Mitchell entered, flanked by Admiral Reynolds and Dr. Chen. Without waiting for recognition, she strode to the central speaking platform, a space traditionally reserved for senior council members. High Counselor Vexlar's compound eyes narrowed. Ambassador Mitchell, you presume much. Your place is. My place, Mitchell interrupted, is where humanity decides it should be, not where you assign us. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Interrupting the High Counselor was unprecedented. The Vostar attacked our colony, Mitchell continued. When we asked for Alliance intervention, you dismissed us. You told us, essentially, that we deserved what happened because our technology was primitive. She gestured to Reynolds and Chen. Allow me to introduce Admiral Reynolds, commanding officer of the UES Prometheus, and Dr. Eliza Chen, creator of the first stable antimatter reactor and weapons system. The murmurs grew louder. K'tal, the Silurian delegate, leaned forward. Antimatter, you expect us to believe that humans have mastered antimatter containment when species with thousands of years more experience abandon such research as too dangerous. Dr. Chen stepped forward. I don't expect you to believe anything, Delegate K'tal. The evidence speaks for itself. 12 Vostar warships destroyed in 20 minutes. By one ship. Our ship. If verification is needed, Reynolds added, I'm sure the Vostar delegation would be happy to confirm our capabilities. All eyes turned to the Vostar representatives, who had suddenly found great interest in studying the floor. High Counselor Vexlar's voice dropped to a dangerous register. What is it you want, Ambassador? Mitchell smiled without warmth. Justice and respect. The Vostar will pay reparations for their attack on New Terra. All restrictions on human colonization will be lifted, and humanity will take its rightful place on this council, not in the outer ring, but as a full voting member. Or? Call asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Or we leave the Alliance, Mitchell replied simply. We take our antimatter technology and go our own way. And you pray that humanity holds no grudges against those who dismissed us for centuries. Silence fell over the council chamber, heavy with implication. Every representative present was thinking the same thing. If one human ship could destroy 12 Vostar warships, what could a fleet of such vessels accomplish? Perhaps, Vexlar said carefully, we have underestimated humanity's potential. These terms can be accommodated. Mitchell nodded. I thought they might be. Admiral Reynolds will remain here with the Prometheus while the formal agreements are drafted. I suggest you work quickly. As the council dissolved into furious discussion, Mitchell led Chen back to the Prometheus. On the way, the scientist finally asked the question that had been bothering her since the battle. Was this the plan all along? To force our way into galactic politics through superior firepower? Mitchell's pace didn't slow. Plan. No. Possibility. Always. Humanity tried playing by their rules for 2 centuries, Doctor. We were patient. We were respectful. And they treated us like children. And now, Chen pressed, what happens when every species in the galaxy starts trying to develop their own antimatter weapons? At this, Mitchell did pause, turning to face the scientist. That's why your next project is already funded. The antimatter reactor was phase 1. I need you to start thinking about Phase 2, which is something even better, Mitchell said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that the galaxy respects only one thing: power. And humanity will never be powerless again. As the Prometheus orbited Nexus Prime, visible to every ship and station in the system, the message was unmistakable. The age of human deference was over. The age of human ascendance had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same. The end.